hello everyone and happy Wednesday. Thank you guys for spending your lunch break with me. For those of you who do not know, my name is Danielle Rogi. I'm the business analyst here at WellWorks, and I am mainly working on large projects that we are putting out. So something like the new portal page. That would be something that I would be working on in the future. Another thing that we're working on is OCR. So today, we really wanted to take the time to go through what is OCR. This is a huge project that we have rolled out and will continue to be rolling out just throughout the course of the next few years here, just continuing to develop this product. And so we really wanted to have a little educational session to go through what OCR is, what has already been created, what's coming on the pipeline, and how it relates to you guys. So a few quick things before we jump in. If you guys are here, that's great because this is a required training for all of WellWorks. For any managers who are on the call, this again is required. So after this call, if you have team members that are not on this call, we would just ask that they watch this recording and they'll have 2 weeks to do so. So that's till next Wednesday, which was already November, but November 9th. So they'll just have to let you know that they've watched this training just to ensure that everyone across the whole company has the same training about OCR so that we can understand how it relates to our daily functionalities. And then throughout this training, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will have time for a Q&A after the training here. So you can save your questions, write them down. Anything client specific or what have you potentially could wait for another time, but anything maybe more general, you can go ahead, feel free to ask those questions at the end. So let's go ahead and jump in. What is OCR? So OCR stands for Optical Character Recognition, and it is a form reading technology. So if you have ever gotten a check and you've sent it through maybe your bank's mobile app, you take a picture of the front end of the check, you take a picture of the back after you've signed it, you type in the amount that your check is for, and you go ahead and you submit that, and it goes right into your bank account. So that same concept is exactly what we are doing with people's forms. So they can take a picture of their form, the information will be uploaded, they'll be able to submit it and receive automatic credit for the form they've submitted. With OCR, there also is the capability to send the form via email. And with that option, it's going to be the exact same workflow that we have today for processing forms. So just like you guys are aware, you receive an email with, from a user, it has their form, you go ahead and process it within, those 7 to 10 business days. The point of OCR is to increase user experience. It's to assist in forms processing. We want to make sure that each department, the admin team, the account management team, has the tools that they need to be successful in their daily functionalities, that they're not focusing on other things that maybe take them away from, your daily job functions. And so this really is to assist the admin team, the account management team in forms processing. And then a big bonus from OCR is that users will receive that automatic credit. So let's jump into which forms have been created already. I just want to let you guys know that we will get into looking through the forms, and we will be talking about what is a standard form versus what is a custom form, but just wanting to give you guys a little idea of what's been created, and then we'll jump into the other information in a minute. So OCR is, again, a form reading technology that has been created for USI Core. So the core team has been using this for, I believe, maybe 2 months at this point. And it's been pretty successful with reading forms, which is really exciting to hear. So there are 6 standard forms that have been created and 1 custom form. So 2 physician forms, 2 tobacco forms, 2 preventive forms that have been created that we would consider standard forms, and then 1 physician results form that is considered a custom form, which is, again, specific to a client. We'll get into all of what that means in just a little bit here. And then what OCR methods have been created? Well, there's 2 options that we will have with OCR. The first is to allow for manual intervention. And what that means is if on the back end you set up to allow for the auto processing, you have 2 options, allow for manual intervention or no manual intervention. If the allow for manual intervention button is checked off for the specific event, that means that when the user is submitting their form, they will have the capability to manually enter information. So they will be able to edit their name, their email, their screening date, their metrics, maybe their tobacco status, or their preventive screening exam that they attended. And so that would be the manual intervention. And then there is a no manual intervention option. And with that, this is something that has been developed, but we will be furthering, the technology and really the honing in on the intricacies of it with this next iteration. But the no manual intervention thought is that everything will be captured by OCR. The user will have no option to enter any information. So those are the 2 different methods, 2 different options with OCR that we have already. So let's talk about what a standard form is. We're just going to discuss it here, and then we're going to launch into looking at the forms so that we can really dig into, again, the intricacies of what is standard versus what is custom. So just think with me for a second about what a form looks like. So let's just think about a physician results form. At the top, we've got the title. Then after that, there's that info paragraph that tells them, that their physician needs to sign the form. This is the look back period if there is one. This is the date you need to submit the form by. And you have that general patient information. Then you have the physician information, and then you have the metrics. Then you have the signature line, and then that bottom footer of how to submit a form. So if we think about all of those different pieces, which again, we will see in just a minute, a standard form is going to be a form that has been approved by the upper management team, created by the marketing team, and the patient information is going to have to remain as it is stated on the approved forms. In addition to that, the form-specific information, so the metrics, the tobacco status options, and the preventive exams options, those also must remain as they are on the approved forms. Then in addition to that, the title, so the physician results form, that specific title, and also the signature lines for the provider must remain, again, as is on the approved forms. Anything else outside of that is what is able to be edited on a standard form. We'll get into that again further. So if that is what is considered standard, then what is custom? So just a quick little overview here. So right now, we have the capability to really customize the form to exactly what the client wants. So again, let's think about the physician results form. Maybe the client wants, location captured, and maybe they want, benefit eligibility date captured on the form. Maybe they want to call it the provider form. Maybe they want to have, a couple additional metrics, or maybe they want to reorder the metrics. If you have a client who, really likes to customize forms, and they do not want to stick with the standard form options, that would then be considered a custom form. So in a case like that, we have a custom request form that we are creating, And you would then fill that form out, which would let the manager, the sales team, and the product team know exactly what the customizations are that are desired. There's going to be lots of communications about this. This is really meant to be a general overview, this training of what OCR is. So I know this is a lot of information. I know that there's going to be lots of questions, and we welcome all of that, all of those conversations. But again, just wanting to give a little overview of what maybe a custom form process will look like. So on a form, if a user would like, as we just kind of mentioned, would like to add any, general patient information, or if they'd like to add maybe some metrics or add tobacco status, or add or remove or reorder some of the preventive screenings, that's what's going to be considered a custom form. So let's jump in here. Let's look at it. Let's practically see, what this looks like here. Oh no, this was just working here. Let's see. Okay. All right, so move in here. Okay, so I have a list of all of the forms that are approved for the 2023 program year in this file right here. We'll first talk about physician form, then we'll talk about tobacco, and then preventive. And Brandon and the marketing team, I just want to give a shout out to them. They did a fantastic job taking all of these details and trying to make it, bite-sized, because there's just so many details. So after this training, I will be sending over to everyone an OCR guide, and it's going to have these forms in it. And they did a really, really great job with explaining what can be added and what cannot be added to a form. What is happening here? Okay, so I'm going to go through it, but just know that there are details here that you can refer to at any time to see what can or cannot be edited on a standard form. So this first form here is the USI core. So when we look at a form, we're able to add the company logo, no problem. We're able to change throughout the whole form. You can change any colors, any fonts, whatever you need to, any font colors, whatever you need, you can edit that, you can customize that for your client. So we've got our title here. This cannot be changed at this time. This little intro paragraph here. So you can enter any information that you need to here. You could make this section 1 sentence long. You could make it a paragraph long. However you need to amend this for your client, you are able to do so. You can change this header information as well as this header information. Again, you can change the colors throughout this whole form, the fonts, what have you. When we launch into this section here, company name, the patient contact information, this is where it gets a little more specific. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of how OCR reads the form. So when the developers are developing OCR to read a form, what they're doing is they're mapping each item. So let's just think about it like on the OCR map, if you will, they have a field 1, and field 1 is equal to company name. Then they have field 2, and field 2 is equal to first name. And they also have in field 2 over here, last name. So this is why it is important to note that on any form that is considered standard, we cannot edit. And by edit, I mean we cannot add, we cannot remove, and we cannot reorder any of these lines here. So when we have company name here, whatever is written here, OCR is going to read as the company name. So if I add a field between company name and first name, it's going to shift down all of this information. And what it's going to do is it's going to read whatever I put here as first name, because that is how OCR is mapped. So for instance, If I added a field here, which in theory would shift all of this down, and first name became location ID or location number, and I just put 01 here for my location, OCR is going to read my first name as 01 because that's how it's mapped. This is why it's important to fill out a custom request form if your client really needs and desires and like cannot move forward in the program without having a custom piece of information here. It's important to let the product team know that there is a customization, because otherwise OCR will not read this form correctly. So again, anything that is mapped here is approved by first the marketing team, then the upper management team, and we're good to send this out, you know, for our clients. So that's the patient contact information. Then we have this physician information section. So this information for USI Core has to be captured, and so this information also cannot be added to, removed, or reordered. We come down here to the, these sentences here. You are free to edit this as you desire. So you can, again, make this one sentence long. You can make this a little paragraph, whatever your client desires here. You are free to add whatever they desire. For the metrics, again, this is for USI Core. So they have these 4 questions here. This is, again, you cannot reorder, add, or remove these questions. This is the approved, form for the USI Core team. Same thing here with these metrics. We cannot add, remove, or reorder. Again, OCR is mapped to read the metrics as they occur in this line order here. So for instance, if I switched height with total cholesterol, and I just switched these two because that's what my client desired, when OCR reads this form, this is mapped in the technology as total cholesterol, height. So if I put total cholesterol here, it's going to read this metric for the user as height, even though we've put total cholesterol here. That's why, again, we cannot add, reorder, or change, or remove, rather, any metrics without approval. I will get into what we can do on these standard forms when we get down into the comprehensive forms. I just want to take my time going through all of the forms for you guys. We get down to this physician information here. This also cannot be edited. So we need to make sure that the physician signatures here, this is the screening date, and then the date signed. This information cannot be changed, added to, removed. And then this information, the footer included, this information is able to be edited however you need. Again, you can change the colors, the fonts, whatever you need. And we will get into questions here at the end. So please make sure, if you have questions, you're writing those down, sending them in the chat. We'll go ahead and we can hop into those in a little bit. Let's look at the 2 options for physician results form. So this is something that's going to be coming down the pipeline for the comprehensive team this upcoming year in 2023. And there's 2 options. I'll just quickly call out the differences, and then we'll just look at one of the forms here. All of this information is the same. The only difference between this option A and option B, I'm going to call your attention to these metrics here. So there's the addition of A1C and pulse. So I'm just going to scroll down. You see A1C and pulse are not listed here. So I'm just going to go through this form. That's the only difference. So as we are thinking about our clients for 2023 program year and we're creating their physician results form, there's these 2 standard options. Again, we can put their logo here. We can change the color, font, whatever is needed here. We can add whatever we need to in this paragraph. And then again, we can edit this information. We can change the colors, the fonts. As we look at this patient contact information, we see again the company name, first name, all this information cannot be added to, changed, or reordered. Now, I do want to call your attention to one thing. I'm not sure if you already observed, but the spouse line is removed from this. So within these standard forms, there are a few caveats. I'm going to call those out. So there are a couple additional developments that we have deemed necessary to create forms for the business. And so one of those things is that we do have the capability to add or remove the employee spouse line from a standard form. Don't worry, I'm going to call all of this information out to make it clear for you. And it's also laid out here. There we go. I'm not sure why this is not working. Sorry about that. I'm really not sure why these aren't working all of a sudden. There we go. Here we go. So this is exceptions for comp, and also this is for core. So this does talk through all of the information that I'm covering here. So we have the capability to add and remove the spouse line, the employee spouse line. The only thing is that we need to make sure that if we remove it, of course, it's the last line item. And if we add it back into a form, that it must be the last item, just like this. So it has to read in the same order. So employee spouse has to be that last item in that patient contact information section. The other customization that already is developed is that if someone would like to add employee number, they can do that. And it has to be between company name and first name. I, again, will call all of this information out in an email, and I will be sending over that OCR guide after this training, which has these forms in it, and this guide will call all of that information out. So you'll have the knowledge at your fingertips, and I am always available. Your managers are always available to ask questions to. Again, I'm just trying to call out here a little overview of the different quote unquote customizations on the standard form. So we can add or remove employee spouse line, and we also can add, if desired, the employee number line, and that has to go between company name and first name. And I can send over a sample of this if you would like as well. As we're going through this comprehensive form, the physician information also cannot be added to, removed, or reordered. This information here, you can add whatever you need to, no worries. You can change the fonts again throughout the whole thing. You can change the colors, the fonts, whatever you need. You could make this one sentence long. You can make it a paragraph long, whatever you need for this paragraph here. And then when we get into these metrics, again, for the comprehensive teams, we have the capability to have, these two different form options. So again, we cannot reorder any of these metrics. We cannot add to these metric tables, and we cannot remove these metrics. So a few other customization options that you have here is that you are able to move these asterisks wherever is needed. So you can remove them from all of the metrics. You can add them to all of the metrics. You can put them just on glucose, whatever is needed. You can have your way with those asterisks. You can also add in parentheses required. I know a lot of comprehensive teams do that to whatever is required. So for instance, I don't know if everyone wanted to have required here, you are absolutely free to add that verbiage here. We just cannot rename any of these metrics because, again, this is what is mapped in the system. So the system is going to look for this information so it knows what to read. If, for example, you have a client that says, hey, I don't want glucose here, I want HbA1c. I want exactly these metrics, but just A1c, no glucose. That would be an example of a custom form. If they are not willing to move forward with this view, where potentially you move the asterisk to the A1c, and maybe you move this if physician recommended up here to glucose, or you could put required here. If they are not interested in this view with glucose being present, with A1c being required or what they want to be captured, then you or that would be considered a custom form. If they, want total cholesterol to be over here, if they want LDL to be over here, and maybe BMI to be over here, that would be considered a custom form. Now, one thing to note is that we really want to be standardizing a lot of these forms. So I think a thought in our mind as we are talking with clients is that we want to maybe streamline the process a little bit of, hey, you kind of have these two options. You've got this option or you've got this option. And if you really cannot move forward without either of these options, then we absolutely can proceed with a custom form. But then we have to let them know that that will come with an additional cost, and it will come with a timeline, because our development team is going to have to test and develop that custom form. And so this is also where the sales team comes in too. Just like any of our other services, we're going to have to reach out to sales. We're going to have to get a quote on the custom form. We are going to have to fill out the exact customization that the client desires. And then again, we'll have to build that, and we can send over a timeline for you. So that's where this custom request form will come in handy. And that's kind of how it would play out as we think about, what a client might really want on a custom form. So let's jump in here to the preventive screening. For the remainder of the forms, just know that any colors and fonts can be changed throughout the whole form. For all three forms, no problem. I'm not going to touch on that anymore. If you ever need that reminder, I'm always here to remind you, no problem. Also, the titles of the forms cannot be changed. I'm not going to mention that anymore. And then, this general information, I'll just continue to call that out here. So again, we'll add our logo here. We can edit this information however we need to. Again, this patient contact information cannot be added to, removed, or reordered. The only two options that we have to quote unquote customize this standard form is to remove the employee spouse line, or in between company name and first name, we add the employee number. Again, if we have to add the employee spouse line back into the form, it must be the last line here. This is again a form for USI Core. This physician information cannot be added to, changed, or reordered. You can go ahead and edit this information, this little paragraph here, however you need. These screenings cannot be added to, reordered, or removed. So anything here, if there's any additional screenings that the client desires, that would be a custom form. This physician information can also not be changed, reordered. Well, that's changed too, added or removed. And then this information can be edited however your client desires. Again, for the comprehensive team, there's going to be two different options. I'll just call out the differences and then we'll look at one form. This information is the same. Just call your attention to these screenings here. These are just your basic exams here. And then the differences are just a few other for the women and also a few other general screenings as well. So they have two different options. If they want additional screenings, then we maybe would not recommend this form. but we might recommend this form. And if they still want additional screenings, or if they want things to look differently, reordered in any way, or removed in any way, then that would be considered a custom form. So again, you can add the logo here. We can change the color font, okay? This company information cannot be added to, it cannot be changed, and it cannot be removed. Again, we can add employee number and then that spouse line or employee spouse line right here. This physician information cannot be added to, removed, or changed. And you can edit this however you desire. This information cannot be changed, added to, or removed. This physician information can also not be added to, removed, or changed. And then this little footer here, we can edit that however our client desires. We'll launch into the tobacco form. So this information, again, it's all the same. It's mapped the same, so we can not reorder, add, or change any of this information except for the employee spouse line, the employee number line. For USI Core, these are the 3 tobacco options. If there is a client who has a 4th option or maybe only 2 options, that is going to be considered a custom form. So again, if your client does not use the standard form that is already approved, we will be needing to create a custom form for them if they would like to use OCR. And then we can edit this information here, but this signature and date must remain on the form. And then again, we can go ahead and we can edit this information. And as we get into the comprehensive forms, again, this information can be edited up here. The company, like this contact information here, again, the only thing that can be edited is the removal of the employee spouse line, and you can add the employee number. I know that I sound like a broken record, but I want to really make it clear because I know there are so many details to this. I just want to make it clear for everyone what can be added or removed from the standard forms. What else is considered a custom form? So for comprehensive, there's 2 different options here. We've got our tobacco status. This one is do not use tobacco or do use tobacco and will be completing the tobacco cessation series. And I'm going to scroll down here to the second form because they are the same other than that. The difference here is that this is going to be I do not use tobacco or I do use tobacco and I will be completing the cessation series and health coaching calls. So you do have the capability to edit, again, the things that are highlighted. You can go ahead and edit. But really, for this information here, we don't need to be editing this for the form. This information should remain the same. So again, we've got the same options here. There's 2 options, but one is for the 6-week cessation series, and one is the cessation series and health coaching calls. All of this information, again, cannot be added to, removed, or changed, except for those 2 exceptions. This information cannot be edited here. Again, you can go ahead and amend the highlighted information as you need to customize for your client. You can go in and you can edit this, these sentences here, but the signature and date must remain. And then again, this footer can be amended in any way. So let me get back in here. That was a little overview of the forms. What is coming down the pipeline? So we did just go through those 6 comprehensive forms. 6 comprehensive forms are going to be created for OCR, and there's going to be options A and B for the 3 different forms, the physician results form, the tobacco form, and the preventive screening form. Those are going to be the only 3 forms at this time that we will be creating that you will be able to use OCR for. So if you have a client who has a race participation log or a physical activity log or the water tracking log, OCR will not be reading those forms, just the physician, the tobacco, and the preventive. For you USI Core people out there, we are also going to be creating the PAP form for you guys. So we'll just be creating one standard form for you guys, the annual proof of your screening. So that's also coming down the pipeline. Again, I touched on this. We will be talking through the no manual intervention option, or not talking through, we will be developing further the no manual intervention option. And then we're going to continue to have ongoing trainings on OCR. We want you guys to feel confident explaining OCR, utilizing OCR, understanding how it relates to you guys. I know the marketing team, I've worked with them to, create marketing, like the verbiage for it. They need to know how it works to create the marketing, and the sales team needs to understand how it works to sell it and also to be able to quote it. And the admin team needs to understand how it works because they are the ones processing forms and answering the phones. And obviously, the account management team, you guys are the ones who are talking to the users as well. So you've got to understand how that works, and of course, setting up the events. And of course, on the IT side here, we are developing and correcting the bugs that are introduced to ensure that it does work properly. So we really, really want to make sure that since it touches every facet of WellWorks, that everyone understands what it is, how it works, and how it relates to you. And so we will be having ongoing trainings. There's going to be lots of informational guides and things coming out down the pipeline. And so we thank you for your patience as we continue to create these things and send them out to you guys. And of course, if you have any questions, we really, really would like the workflow to be that you go to your manager, ask your manager your questions, and if they can't answer them, then they will bring those to me, and I would be happy to answer any questions. I'm always available for any questions. So make sure if anything comes to mind, you just reach out to your manager and they'll reach out to me on those questions. I know that there will be lots of questions as we get into it and as we talk with clients and as they ask questions. So again, always here to answer those as they come out. At this time, I will open it up here for questions. I'm just going to see, yes, the chat is popping. Love it. So I will quickly go through these questions, and if there's any others, please feel free. Question time for you guys. If anything comes to mind, feel free to just go ahead and ask here. For the meantime, though, I will just start reading the questions in the chat. So Lauren says, is the company name being read as company name or the display name? It's going to be read as the display name. Harry says, is there an extra cost for custom forms? Great question. There will be an additional cost. However, that is not for me or anyone on the tech team or the manager team to assign. That is something that will come straight from sales. So we will have a custom request form that we are in the process of getting approved. And that's something that will go through the manager, it will go through sales, and then it will come to the product team. So will the cost be standard or will it vary? That is a really good question, and that is up to the sales team. It also is up to the development of the customization. And then you also asked, what is the turnaround time if a client wants a custom form? Another great question. That actually is going to depend on the development. So anything on the form that your client wants created is going to have a development timeline to it. So what that means is I have to tell the developers what the customization is. The developers have to create that customization. They have to test it. then we have to test it and you have to test it to make sure that it's right for your client. And then we can go ahead and give them the form and push it out. So this all can happen very quickly, but that timeline will be different potentially for each form. We just have to know at the time. It's not really a standard 2-week turnaround time. That's not really how it's going to work for this process here. Lauren says, can we add a little extra space between the certify line and the physician signature line? The answer is yes, you can do that. If the paragraph description is larger than the standard and it shifts the components of the form down, will this be an issue? That's a great question. It will not. So what it's doing is basically you can think about it as like little boxes. So like when you're looking at the form, you can put a box. I'll pull it up real quick. You could think about putting like a box around like this information here. And or let's just use this. You could put a box around this information. So the further this paragraph goes, this whole box is going to shift down. What will shift this information is if I add another field here and all of this stuff shifts down. So if the whole box itself shifts down together, you are okay to, like, the OCR will read the form. Does that make sense, Jamie?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. We read this from Carly here. You were to rework this verbiage to one sentence, it was shifted. Yeah, so the things with like shifting forms, that's okay. Again, just think about the information that cannot be changed as one big box. If everything inside that box remains the same and it shifts down or up based on the paragraph length, you are fine. OCR will read the form. If anything inside the box is shifted by adding or removing or reordering, then OCR will not read it correctly. For the PAP form, this is coming down the pipeline. We will keep you guys posted on all of the forms and when they are ready. And with that, if you guys are interested in being a part of an OCR testing team, you can reach out to me directly. I would be glad to get you guys set up for the USI core team or for the comprehensive team. I'd be glad to have your guys' assistance in testing forms. Just a few more questions here. For preventive forms, can we add to the line of exams similar to adding required next to waist circumference? For example, prostate exam / PSA blood test. So I think that really that would depend, Jamie, or for everyone here. So I would actually say this is a question for if it happens, I would really send this to the manager to send over to me because it could depend on the specific exam itself. And then if we are able to edit the middle section with the accepted look back period dates, can the OCR technology recognize if the exam date is outside of the look back period? That's a great question, Jamie. So we are going to be building in, okay, let me rephrase that. For comprehensive, I know that it has been best practice to build events, including, or like where the begin date is the look back period. So let's just say, you know, WellWorks' on-site screening is 10/26/2022 to 10/26/2023, but they're, I don't know, accepting from 1/1/2022. The begin date should be 1/1/2022 and the end date should be 10/26/2023. So if anyone is within that date, they are totally fine. Their form will be recognized. With USI Core, it does not work that way, and the beginning of their event date is when the program starts. And so we are going to try to be working out, you know, how that functionality plays out. That's something that is in process right now. Is the development process required for all custom forms? Yes, that is correct. Are the comprehensive PCP forms okay to use now if we have a client looking for the form in the next few weeks? Yes, these are approved forms. I believe the team is currently utilizing these for the 2023 program. If a required metric is missing when uploaded, what will happen? Will the coordinator be notified? Great question, Sam. So if the allow manual intervention option is turned on for the event and a metric is missing, or if the metric is if it comes over incorrectly, then the user will be able to edit their metric right then and there. Let's just say my waist circumference came over as like, I don't know, 46 instead of 26 because of the handwriting. I can go ahead and I can change that waist circumference to 26 and I can go ahead and submit my form, no problem. One thing that we are going to be working on with the no manual intervention, because the user will not be able to edit their metrics or tobacco status or preventive screenings. If that information does come over incorrectly, then we are going to try to figure out a way of like the coordinator being notified, like you're saying, so that we can get that amended. Our goal also is that OCR will continue to read the numbers correctly. And this is something that actually OCR is like a learning technology. So through time, it's just going to get better at reading, just like we are. We go from being kids and we read and then we start reading novels and, and then we can understand complex, maybe college level, or post-college level, textbooks. This is how OCR works as well. If a client does not want to pay for a custom form, can they continue with manual processing? Yes, they can. The options, I believe, are going to be, yes, they can continue with manual processing. They could use the standard form, or they could pay for a custom form. What happens if someone submits an EOB or lab work from their patient portal versus the OCR form? That's a great question. So if someone submits their EOB or lab work, it's going to come through maybe like the contact us, or if they send it via email. If they try to send it through, okay, let me say it this way. If they send it through contact us or via like personal email, then we can process that as it comes. If the OCR is turned on for, let's just say, the preventive screening, or I'm sorry, the physician results form, then it's going to let the user know that they're uploading an incorrect form. So one thing that's important is that the titles on the form is what is triggering OCR to know what form is being processed or uploaded rather. So it needs to be the physician results form that is uploaded in order for their metrics to populate. What is the process to delete out a form that is submitted through the portal and logged within the wellness locker? This is something that we are currently figuring out, to be honest. Right now, this is something that the tech team takes care of. However, this is not something that should be a regular practice. If someone submits a form for another participant, like their spouse, will OCR automatically kick it out? Great question, Kim. This is absolutely a compliance question. On the OCR pop-up, there is an attestation checkbox. So it has their general information, and then there's a little checkbox that says, I attest I am submitting a form for myself. So if they accept that, that is them saying they are submitting a form for themselves, number one. Number two, the form name is being read. And so if it does not match what is on the personal profile of the user, it will have an error message that says, we're sorry, it looks like you're submitting a form for someone else. We really want to make sure that, yes, you're right, they are submitting a form individually for themselves. Also, for the physician results form and tobacco form, they can only submit one form per profile or per wellness year rather, to ensure that they are not submitting two forms, one for them, one for their spouse. Great. Any other questions? You can feel free to just shout them out here now.
Hey, this is Bob from the Orthos Health side. Just so everybody's aware, OCR is the same technology we use for the digital diabetes management program for when members have an analog glucose meter where we can't connect with Bluetooth. So you guys will be hearing a lot more about OCR and other technologies as we're porting that over into WellWorks over the coming months.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. Emily had a question. What is the process if a participant emails their form to forms email? Great question. So that's going to follow the exact same process we have today. So if someone sends a form via email, either from their work email or personal email, the admin team or the coordinator will process that forms. They'll have that 7 to 10 business days to turn that around. They will be able to send that through, again, their personal email, contact us, or through OCR, they'll have the option to send email. The send email option on the OCR pop-up itself will have a little message after they submit the form that says, like, thanks for submitting your form. You will receive your results within 2 weeks. If they click the submit button, they will receive automatic credit. Development team required core to hard code the employee spouse line on the 3 core forms. I believe that we did discuss that you can remove the employee spouse line. That's why we developed that additional form for you guys. So no, you can remove the employee spouse line. That is working. That's something we discussed. If a person is missing a metric, will it credit their participation? Great question, Carla. So if a person is missing a metric and they have the allow manual intervention option turned on, they will be able to enter that metric. If the no manual intervention is turned on, then they are not able to edit that metric, then either they can submit the form for us to process and we would follow our same workflow of like, hey, you know, waist circumference is required, please give me your waist. Or again, this is something our team is still trying to figure out of what will that process look like? Will the coordinator be made aware? We're still kind of figuring out what that would look like. Participants will need to put down the same name as their profile. So if someone is named Jonathan but goes by John, will it reject? Yes. One thing we are actually working on is that the OCR pop-up, that general information, for instance, their name, first name, last name, email, date of birth, company name will already be populated so that it's their information is already there. So we don't even have to worry about OCR reading their name. It will just ensure that it is, you know, the same individual. But until that happens, yes, Jamie, it will reject them. If again, a manual intervention is turned on, they're able to match the name by just fixing it, and we have a little pop-up message. But if no manual intervention is turned on, it would give them a message that says, hey, you know, fix your name and resubmit or something like that. For preventive screening components that require 2 screenings, if a participant submits a form with 2 screenings marked off, will OCR credit for both? So this is the way that it works right now, is that an individual, let's say they have 2 screenings, they are going to have to submit the same form twice. I believe we had training on that for USI Core. They're going to have to submit the same form twice and check off a different screening each time. This is something we're working to improve for iteration 2 though, but at this time, that's how it works. Any other questions? Cool. Did you guys want to see anything again? Is there anything you wanted me to touch base on again? Alrighty. Well, thank you guys for diligently listening. I know there's so many details that go into this, so please feel free to reach out again to your manager with any questions, and I would be really happy to sit and explain anything any questions that you guys have. So again, for the managers on this call, if people on your team were not able to attend, they will have 2 weeks to watch this training and let you know that they watched it. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday.